Welcome to the latest edition of the Student Spotlight series. It's my pleasure today to have Swapnanil with us. Swapnanil is a part of the inaugural cohort for our Cambridge Startup Techcamp, where we brought together students working with and computer science researchers, in addition to startup entrepreneurs, to provide sort of a combination program where students get simultaneously a computer science bootcamp experience and a sort of EMBA experience. So today we've brought in Swapnanil to talk a little bit about the projects that he undertook during this program, what he's doing now, and his experience of the program. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you so much, Oliver. It's a great pleasure to be here.
So before we get started, Swapnanil, would you mind sort of briefly introducing yourself, say a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and how old you are, etc.?
Sure. So my name is Swapnanil Mukherjee, and I'm a 12th grade student from West Bengal, India. I've been pretty much interested in computer science and programming since I was in 7th or 8th grade. And I've been doing programming since then. So yeah, coming into the camp, I really did have somewhat a lot of knowledge of programming beforehand, at least in comparison to most other of my peers. So that's one thing. And apart from that, I'm also a student researcher of computer science. I mean, I have one of my papers in the pipeline right now, and I hope to get published within the next couple of weeks. Other than that, I am a co-founder of a edtech startup, basically, which is kind of a practice platform for students starting from 5th grade to the ones preparing for even job entrance tests in India. So yeah, that's pretty much it, I think.
Cool. So for the listeners who aren't as familiar with the Startup Techcamp program, would you be able to give sort of a quick introduction of what that program was about and what you guys did during it?
Right. So the Startup Techcamp program is, as you already mentioned, it's kind of a blend between an entrepreneurial experience as well as the coding part of computer science. So I think it's ideal for people who want to make it into the field of computer science and programming, as well as they also want to have a taste of business. So it's basically like it's more or less they're coming into the ed tech business or the fintech business or something to like of the fancy AI and ML startups these days that do tons of things like say analysis, data mining, data capturing, data storage, making business predictions using data. So yeah, I think the Startup Techcamp made it pretty much clear, and it was quite absolute from the program curriculum and structure that the program didn't only want the students to have only knowledge of coding and computer science, but also want to have them understand the various aspects of the industry and how things work in the real world through the guest lectures and the workshop that we have, the guest speakers, startup founders, people working at different tech companies, the big ones like Google, and startups, smaller startups, and even the professors that we have. I think that was a great part of the tech camp, the tech camp specifically, in comparison to the other programs such as the research workshop and the other programs which focus mostly on the academic part of things. But yeah, I think having a knowledge of how things work in the real world, I think that's as equally important.
Mm-hmm. So would you mind telling us a little bit about the Startup Techcamp is a project-based learning experience. So most of the learning that took place over the, 10-week program was mostly focused on doing actual projects. What were one or two of the projects that particularly interested you and that you enjoyed doing the most?
Right. So the projects, like as I said, that I already had a lot of knowledge and experience about computer science. So I would say the initial weeks, it wasn't as challenging as I expected it to be, since I think it was more tailored towards people who are actually very new to coding and are just starting out with the basics. So yeah, I think for me, the interesting part of the camp actually started when it was when it was nearing its end. So basically the last 3 or 4 weeks. And during that time, the projects that we were given, the very final projects, such as uh, the online trading bot and the NLP projects, I think these two are the ones which actually interest me the most. And since I already have an NLP background, the paper which I'm working on, it's on NLP and text summarization and text classification. So I think that was the one which interested me the most, and as well as the trading bot, because although I know a lot of front end development and how things go into making a website and web page, actually never looked into the back end part of things. But the trading bot actually gave us a lot of insight onto how actually the back end works. And since it was actually a fully fledged trading bot rather than a dummy project, it was actually quite fun getting to actually run the whole thing on our own computers, because I think just setting up the bot took us around 3 or 4 lessons. It was actually so complex. So yeah, that was the fun part, and it totally mimicked real world situations, because we used real strategies and we backtest the strategy using different algorithms, and we actually even ended up making a little bit of profits and losses. So yeah, apart from the coding aspect of things, I think we also learned a lot about trading and finances in particular, just the theory. Till doing the project, I didn't even know how trades are made, or what strategies are used in financial analysis and technical analysis. So yeah, I think that apart from the coding part, the trading project increased my knowledge about finances a lot than I actually expected myself to get into. And the NLP projects, which was based on text summarization and text classification, they were indeed very familiar to me. Since I have been doing that already for the past couple of months, I actually also ended up displaying my own code to my fellow students, to just give them an example of how to make prototypes and how to get the prototypes to work according to what we want, and how to actually transition them into a fully fledged production model from a prototype. So these things are very important when you do research, because ultimately research is worth nothing if it doesn't go into production. Right? I mean, so those parts are actually very interesting. And I would mention one very specific thing about the NN project, which was our instructor Thomas. He actually explained the things so well. I think although I knew it a lot, although I knew a lot about it before, but Thomas explained it so well. I think even if I hadn't known it, it would have been pretty clear to me even then. So yeah, I think I can speak on behalf of my fellow peer beginner students. I think it was, much to Oliver's credit, the last few sessions on NLP, they were beautifully structured and mentored to us.
Yeah. So we actually consulted a number of computer science experts and students at Cambridge and professors in the design of this program. So we were really trying to do something that could target sort of introductory students, but also sort of mid to high levels, so that towards the end of the program, everybody could be challenged. And then there's something for everyone in this whole program. So I want to pivot a little bit from the programming aspect of it and ask you a little bit more about the business dimension and the entrepreneurial dimension. So you mentioned earlier that you're an entrepreneur. And for this program, we brought in, as you mentioned, people who worked previously at Amazon and Google, but also sort of people who are startup founders, people in fintech, in biotech, and a number of different areas, including someone who made a NLP startup.
Right.
And so tell me a little bit about your experience interacting with these entrepreneurs and business folk. How has that helped you in your understanding of business and entrepreneurship and in your own work?
Right. So although I actually founded a startup, I didn't handle the business part of it. I was mostly working with the internal sourcing of stuff, designing, structuring, and creating creating algorithms, designing them, writing the code. But yeah, I think what you said is actually very important to me, because even though my focus was definitely not on the business aspect of this program, but yeah, even in that case, I actually happened to learn a lot more than I expected to. Because, for example, the founder of Chai ML, the NFT platform that is mentioned, she actually described the whole process of getting of she having the idea in her mind and then pitching it to some of the investors and getting the funding, seed funding. They're even like raising funds still now. They initially had some troubles and they got a new developer, and so actually the key highlight of these journeys is how they manage to overcome some troubles that may seem that they are impossible to overcome. Because as a startup founder, I know how difficult it is to raise funding, how difficult it is to get investors on board, how difficult it is to even prepare a proper pitch, even when your product is under development. So, I mean, I don't know if a product will work out. I don't know what capabilities it will have 5 years down the line. But yeah, I still have to keep in mind that like this is what I might be able to do, and then pitch it to the investors and try to make them believe that yeah, this is what I will do. I mean, I don't know if I will be able to do that, but yeah, I need to make the investors believe that yeah, this is what I will make it happen. So that is, I think, one of the most interesting parts of owning and creating a business. The second is, I would like to cite an example, which is NutroCheck. The founder of NutroCheck, he's also he's also a doctor at Stanford, a doctor at Cambridge, I think.
Yes.
And the interesting part about his product is that it has the potential to improve millions of lives, and which is also something that I actually love about startups, because they are always not in the process of making the money. Because from what he said, he was going to sell the devices at minimum or no profit at all to third world countries like India, China, Bangladesh, etc. So this is another very important aspect of business and startups, that people always might not have the intentions of raising money or becoming millionaires through their startups. People might do it just to improve the lives of their own fellow people around them who are suffering from something that they might be able to mitigate. So so I think these two things are something which I learned through this camp the most, which is we must never give in, however hard the challenge might seem at hand. We must always try to find some way around it, and there is some way, of course. There is no problem in this world that hasn't a solution to it. We just need some time and focus and determination to get to the solution. And the second is the motivation to do something always doesn't have to be financial gain or financial profit or just improving your own self. The motivation to do something for others is actually much greater than to just earn money and make yourself a millionaire. So I think if for anybody who's trying to create a business, I think their focus should be on their product. That this is my product, this is what I can do, this is my plan down the line, this is what I should be doing to achieve this, and this 10 years down the line. Instead, I've seen many startups, they focus on raising funds and they just try to make quick money, which although it might not sound very good coming from me since I'm just a 17-year-old, but yeah, that doesn't work quite well. If you try to make money, you'll never make money. Just try to focus on what you're building, just try to do what you love, just try to improve on what you already have, and if you do it the right way, the money is sure to come along. But if you just try to get money in with an average or trash product, it's never going to work, and you probably end up wasting all your investment and stuff like that.
Incredibly well put. So that connects to sort of your own experience as a young entrepreneur. It sounds like your own project also has this sort of social entrepreneur dimension to it. Could you tell me a little bit more about, I guess more concretely, your own startup and how this whole experience has fed into that?
Right. So my startup, actually, it's not exactly my startup. I actually happened to found it with one of my uncles. I mean, he actually is uncle, like in relation, he's my father's brother, but we're just 10 years apart. So it's more like he's my elder brother, and one of his friends. So actually, there are 3 people in it. He was the CEO, and unfortunately, he passed away last year, which is something very unfortunate, and we had to shut down the project after that. But yeah, till that point, we had started back in November. We originally had the idea in the late months of 2017. So the starting, I'll just tell you what it is in brief. So it was called Foundry. It was basically a practice platform for different kinds of tests and exams and stuff which happen in India. So I don't know if you know this, but yeah, there are a lot of online edtech platforms in India currently, such as an Academy, Byju's, and other online learning platforms on YouTube and free courses and stuff like that. But the problem with them is that they only just give you the education content. There is no platform for practice. I mean, you can just learn the highest quality content from YouTube. There is no restriction on that. But where do you practice? There is no way to practice the stuff that you learn. So we were trying to bridge this gap between learning from online platforms and putting your own skills to practice right then and there. So and there was actually a serious lack of such online platforms, because there are definitely coaching services and centers who provide these kind of offerings that you might have to go to their physical location study center, and then they'll get you. Then they give you practice tests and stuff like that. But yeah, they're often prohibitively expensive for people who come from lower middle class backgrounds or don't have the resources to finance their or afford these kind of services. So what we were trying to do was we were basically creating such practice platform based on MCQ questions at first, so multiple choice questions. So we had started from fifth grade in school to 12th grade in high school, and then there were different. Then there were also options for different job openings or like professional entrance tests in India. You might know that the joint entrance examination or the NEET examination for medicine in India, and UPSC, and then the other bank and other government services like banks, railways, and stuff like this. So we and all these exams, they are conducted in the MCQ format. So initially we had this plan of rolling out the MCQ version of this program, which is will like our internal team with source questions and answers, and then people will be presented with those questions and answers, and as they progress, they'll be given and like they'll be subsequently given the more tougher questions as they near the end. So this was our original plan, and we also kind of put into action. We created a prototype, and we were actually able to sell it to 6 different colleges in our state. So 6 different local colleges, they bought our product, and the students at their colleges, they were very satisfied using it. And after that, we were kind of rolling in the development of subjective questions, which you might know that it's a lot more difficult to check and grade subjective question answers rather than MCQ questions, because MCQ there is one question and just one correct option, so it's nothing subjective. But in a fully fledged answer, a computer has to read the answer, understand what it says, and then check its relevance to what the actual answer is. So that is where the NLP and AI came along. And I think I would say it was a sufficiently difficult challenge, because we didn't have the resources or the finances to pull this kind of thing with the agility and the beauty that we wanted it to. But yeah, we even happened to develop that prototype with some seed funding from from the money that we raised from these colleges by selling a product, and seed funding from a few other incubators. And we did end up creating a prototype even for the subjective model, and it performed quite well actually. But then the tragedy struck, and my uncle, he passed away last year in October, and then I was in high school, and the other partner, even he was transitioning to a different phase of his life. So ultimately, we had to shut down the project in spite of it kind of working.
I'm terribly sorry to hear about the tragic, unexpected end to the startup, but it sounds like the experience itself was incredibly valuable for you in terms of just understanding how entrepreneurship works and what could be done with a piece of code and an idea and a keen eye for existing problems. And as you mentioned, I found what you said earlier really quite brilliantly put, this idea of solutions always existing and just sort of having to keep on digging in order to find the right way to solve the problem. So I want to turn now to ask you some more future-oriented questions as we begin to wrap this up. So one aim of the Startup Tech Camp was to help students think a little bit more about, while sort of building up their skills, think a little bit more about their future careers. This is why we brought in the people from Google. This is why we brought in the entrepreneurs to sort of field the possibilities of what kinds of careers are out there, and give you guys a sense of what I can do with the skills that I'm simultaneously acquiring. So as you're wrapping up high school, what are the next steps for you? Where do you envision yourself in 5, 10 years?
I think I'm the most excited for this question because, yeah, so I'll end high school the next year, but I'll have to start applying to colleges this year itself. The application period started, and through the application process, some of it. And what you said, where do I see myself in 10 years? I definitely want to pursue higher education and research in computer science and AI. So I'll probably end up getting a PhD in computer science and AI, artificial intelligence. And my aim as a researcher, I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with this concept of artificial general intelligence. So it's a very specific domain of AI which aims to develop intelligences which are as close to the human brain as possible. So that's why it's called an artificial intelligence, an artificial general intelligence, because the AI that we have today, it's not general. They perform very specific tasks, such as some of them perform audio, like tasks on signal processing. Some of them operate on video, on images, some operate on text and stuff like this. But none of them are universally general. And the ultimate goal of the AI community is to reach a point where we can create truly general intelligences which can operate without the need for human supervision. So, and I feel, and like, as according to experts say, the revolution will come sometime around 2040 and 45. So definitely that is one of my primary aims right now, which is I want to be an active part. I want to play an active part and actively contribute to the creation of an artificial general intelligence.
Cool. That's a super interesting answer. So your goal is to help realize the possibility of Skynet.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's wonderful. Let's hope you don't end up annihilating humanity, but as you said, sort of help out your community with these with your research and your future work. So
definitely on that point, I just like to mention one more thing, which is growing up as a kid. I mean, my mother is a school teacher, and my father works as a private service person. So nobody in my family had any knowledge of computer science whatsoever. So whatever I've learned it on my own through YouTube, through MOOCs, Coursera, Udemy, and stuff like this. So I didn't really have anybody exactly guiding me through the process. So whatever I've learned it on the hard way on my own, making tons of mistakes and fiddling through the path. So what I also want to do is I want to establish a research lab for high school students who may not have the resources to work on something that they really want to, but who have the drive and the potential to make some change. And I also want to have the same name as a startup that I founded with my uncle, which is Founded. So that is one of my other aims, one of my secondary aims, is to establish a research lab specifically intended for high school students and people who don't have the resources to work on their own, but they do have the drive and the potential to make a change in the world.
That's excellent. That's really, really wonderful to hear. And so with the final wrap-up question, what I usually ask students is, sort of, is there any sort of question that I didn't manage to ask, something that you wanted to bring up, either about your experience, at the tech camp, or sort of your interactions with the mentors that you want to sort of share with our listeners to close it out?
Yeah, sure. So my mentors actually, I just like to mention, like, although all of them were actually quite great and they were actually very supportive, they guided us through every single thing. They spent hours just debugging errors on the computer. But I think it would be unfair if I didn't mention the name of Justin, Thomas, and Jason. These three people, I think they have put in a lot more effort than I would have expected any mentor at such a camp to do. Because ultimately they are here just 1 hour a day, and it's none of the liability to actually get us to understand that's in the course material, because that's the point. They don't have any liability towards us. This is a camp. Everybody's supposed to learn on their own. That's kind of the job to do. But these people, they made sure that we actually understood every single thing that's in the course material. I think that's beautiful. I don't know. I cannot express how grateful I'm to these people, to all the mentors in general, but specifically Justin, Thomas, and Jason. They've helped me become a better person myself, because if anybody approaches me for help now, I would try to do the same to them. I would ensure that I try my best to make them understand what I'm trying to tell them, or put my best efforts to clarify something that they probably wouldn't understand in the first place. So yeah, I think it's thanks to them for that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So let me just get it straight, because I'll now be sure to share this video with them. It was Justin, Thomas, and Jason.
Jason. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll be sure to share this video with them. I'm sure they'll be really glad to hear what you just said. Well, that's pretty much all the time that we have. But I would just like to say thank you so much, Swapnanil, for joining us for this episode of the Student Spotlight. It was so interesting hearing about your past startup experiences, what you learned at the camp, and sort of your big dreams moving forward. And the last thing I want to say is thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great experience.